Welcome, Angela, and welcome to people who are watching, whether live or on the recording. I am really excited to be here today with you for what is actually my first LinkedIn Live. So I'm Jo Ilfeld. I'm CEO and founder of Insight to Leadership, an executive coaching and leadership development firm. And when I decided I wanted to do this first LinkedIn Live, I could think of no one better than Angela to join me. Angela has an amazing career spanning over 25 years in the technology space. She's led a lot of organizations through rapid transformation and is really amazing at working cross-functionally, which for those of you who might have some troubles working with your technology organization, you can appreciate someone who has that collaborative focus. Angela joined Priceline a year ago, leading the tech delivery organization. And 6 months into her tenure, she was actually tapped to serve as the interim CTO and is now leading the work to evolving the organization's product operating model. Prior to Priceline, she was SVP of Data and Enterprise Services at CareSource, and she led a very successful data modernization strategy to improve their core IT delivery capabilities, receiving a 2023 CIO 100 award for excellence in innovation. So I couldn't be more excited to talk today with someone who has that focus on innovation, has that focus on collaboration, has that focus on creating dynamic and amazing teams. And just also, I should mention that Angela even co-founded her own nonprofit where she's really committed to empowering women and underrepresented groups through networks of coaching and advocacy. So Angela, thank you so much for being here today and being on this experiment with me. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to have you join all my calls and introduce me.
I am happy to join all your calls and introduce you. We can talk details later. So just as we're getting started, and I, of course, that's the official bio, but to help people get to know you a little bit better, Angela, what would you say is your leadership philosophy and how's it evolved through your 25-year career?
Gosh, well, I'll start with how it's evolved through my career. Entering the workforce, I would tell you I didn't even know what a leadership philosophy was. I didn't even have one. And so through a wide variety of different jobs and teams, I started recognizing I did have a leadership philosophy and I did have a way in which I thought about guiding my decisions and my actions as a leader. And it's just changed. It's really changed based upon the environment. It's changed based upon the work. It's changed based upon what the company needed from myself and my team in the moment. And so I think that's the most important piece around having a leadership philosophy is that it's a living, breathing thing. It's something that always changes and grows with you. And, you have to be flexible. You have to see what the situation requires and what it requires you bring to the table to help your team, to help the work, and to help the organization move forward. When I think about who I am today and how I show up as a leader, I guess I would categorize it as servant leadership. I really do prioritize the needs of the teams and empowering individuals. I believe in making decisions together, encouraging ownership, being more in that coaching support role, helping people make choices for themselves and guide them down that path and support them in that path. And for me, the way that I stay true to kind of living and breathing that and reminding myself of just my own leadership guiding principles or philosophies, I have a little sticky note. And I just
love sticky notes.
Yeah, and it comes with me on my laptop where I have it on my wall. And it's just a couple of words that remind me in how I want to stay true to how I show up and how I interact. And those words are, be curious, slow down, Slowing down helps me stay curious, helps me see the situation, see the people in the situation, and then really always assume the best intent. Because when you're trying to do work together and as a community and collaboratively, sometimes you have to have bumpy conversations. And to get through that, you just got to assume the best intent.
I love that. And I love that you're willing to share what's on your sticky notes with us. I
I'm not
am
going to
curious,
show them
like,
to you, but I'll share.
I think slowing down, honestly, is something that most of my clients have the hardest time doing. I mean, we live in a 24/7 culture. We're getting Slack messages all the time. We're getting
Mhm.
emails. People are on their phones when they're talking to us. Like, how do you slow down? Like, what do you do when you notice that sticky note on
Yeah.
your computer?
Yeah. Uh, it is honestly really hard for me. It is one of the hardest things for me to slow down. I like to run. I like to run fast. I like to make quick choices and move the ball. And that doesn't always serve me well. And so when I when I tell myself to slow down, how I do that for myself is a couple of things. One, it's words that pop into my mind and makes me conscious of and intentional about just doing that. And then, like in meetings or conversations, even in Zoom meetings, I close my laptop. I close the emails. I close the Slacks unless it's an interactive conversation we need to have. But I put down any device for communication so that I could fully engage and participate. And it does feel like I'm slowing down because it's this idea of multitasking, having a couple of things going at all the times. But really, at the end of the day, if you're doing that, you're not paying attention to any of them. So that is the practice that I employ most of the time to slow me down. The second one that's a fast follower
I love a
that has
fast follower
benefited
for
me.
slowing down, but yes.
Yeah, right. A fast follower, slow down. And there's lots of Instagram memes about this too. So it always makes me think of it. Um, I do not respond to emails or Slacks right away. I look at them and I'm like, that's interesting. Now, sure, if there's something urgent, like I gotta, whatever, you can kind of gauge that. But I also just don't respond the second I get it. I give myself a little bit of time, and it could just be minutes, it could be hours, but just a little bit of time to think about it, think about what I'd want to say, and then say it. So those are the two ways that I slow down, and then I talk about it a lot so that I don't forget that I need to do it.
I love that. I love that you have to remind yourself because, folks listening in, like it's one thing to have a leadership philosophy, but it is really hard to stay in it. And, Angela's third point was about always assume best intent. And I can see when you're actually stopping and not responding to emails, it allows for that time to assume best intent because we know when it just hits us in that moment, the first thing is like, how could they write that? Or what the H are they
Right.
talking about here? And, and it is hard to get that. Assuming best intent is really almost like more of a higher order thinking. And if you're reactive, you just can't access that. So I
Yeah.
love that you're doing so much to access what's important to you and to be the leader you want to be by actually being present in the meetings and things that you're in.
Now, am I perfect at it all of the time? Nope. Nope. But I can feel myself when I drop below kind of that line and that line in the sand that I've drawn for myself. I certainly do. But at least I know where I need to come back up to.
Yes, I love that because it's permission to all of us. We're going to fail. We're going to have a philosophy. We're going to have a way we want to show up, and we're not going to make it all the time. I mean, honestly, we're lucky if we make it 60% of the time, more than not, or 51. But like the point is that you keep coming back to it, that you have something to come back to that's important. So I love that. Thank you.
Yep.
So we had, named this the 3 most critical things leaders should be asking their teams at year end. And I'm curious to ask you, what's one question you've asked your own team this year that sparked really meaningful conversations or change?
Yeah, well, it's been a super interesting year for me. And so what my teams have looked like have changed a couple of times
Right.
this year. And so when I was thinking about this question, what popped to mind is, it just seemed like a very simple and straightforward question, but it really prompted a ton of conversation. And it was when I was taking the seat at the table to serve as the interim CTO for Priceline. That was me in a new role with a new team. And so you always go back through that storming, norming, forming. And what I asked is, what commitments do we want to make to each other? How do we want to operate together? How do we make choices together? And the conversation that prompted is to get to really simple answers. You have to go through a lot of question and answer. What do we want to look like? How do we want to show up? How do we want the organization to see us? And how do we want to tell the organization we're going to work and function as a leadership team? And so it was great. And it rolled into a, half day conversation that took a few more days, but we landed in a space where we could articulate a vision of who is tech for Priceline, what value do we deliver, and how are we going to be making choices and show up for our organization to get that work done. So it was really surprising to me. I thought it would be a super simple, quick question. Hey guys, what are we going to do? And it just took a lot longer, but really great conversation, because I think so much of the time, you hit the ground running, you just want to create a plan and do some action and move stuff forward. But it's kind of back to the age-old theory of measure twice, cut once. It's better to get clear on who's at the table, how you're going to operate, what roles people play. And then it's smoother sailing when you are trying to get work done or make hard choices or move through bumpy times.
I love that, because I think what you're pointing out too is that we can have team agreements, we can have ways we want to behave, but they operate within a context. And if we're not clear on the context, like where we're headed for this year, what's most important, then it's a little bit like, oh, okay, I have these behaviors, but they're not in service of anything. And if you're going to have team behaviors, they really need to be in service of what the big mission is. And so I think you're right that this is a really important question to ask at the year end, because people are thinking, what are we in service of next year? Mm-hmm. What are our goals for 2025? And then what new agreements might we need to make that happen?
That's right.
I just have to say this because it's one of my little, not pet peeves, but something as a team coach that I'm always really aware of is oftentimes teams come up with the agreement of assuming best intent. Mm-hmm. And I think it's one thing for you to have it for yourself, which is really wise, but I think it's a really hard agreement to have for a team, because how do you know if someone is assuming best intent? How can you tell? What is best intent for one person might not look like assuming best intent for another person. And so I feel like it's one of these team agreements that people are really quick to throw out there. And it's got to be one of the hardest things to either execute on or even sort of check out and see if the team is doing it, check in on it. Yeah. So I love that it's for you, it's your agreement, because I think it's much easier to sort of check ourselves and be like, was that really assuming best intent?
Well, yeah, yourself, in your gut. Did you assume best intent? No, in your gut, and to your point, you can't, it is hard to assess that in another person.
Yeah. Thank you for agreeing with me on that one.
Yeah. Well, you have coached me over the many, many years, so I've probably learned a few things from you.
Just a couple, hopefully,
Not
just
more.
a couple. Okay, so now what's one question or type of question that you
Mhm,
ask to help align your team with the company strategy?
mhm.
Like, because obviously we want to think about what our team strategy is, but we want it to be aligned with where the company also needs us to prioritize and go. So yeah, how do you align with the company strategy and vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really boils down to, you know, the company's mission, purpose, ambition, strategic pillars, and seeing how your work, your more tactical project, run the operations, where does it ladder up to those strategic pillars? So that's what that's one question we always ask. How does this work fit into and tie back to those strategic pillars and actually move the dial on those levers? Those levers at the base of each of those pillars is like, how are we, growth measures, quality measures, all sorts of different things. That is the bottom line. That is going to say how well or not well did we do in a given year, and ultimately how well or not well did we do in a given year dictates a lot of things, including bonus, merit, opportunity. How do you create that lineage of why does it matter to the person? What is the work? Why does it matter? And how does that work tie back up? Because if people can see themselves and the work that they're doing every day in the strategic vision and strategic pillars, there is more of a sense of being a part of the system. So working in the system and working on the system. And then the other question that we ask is ask why. Why are we doing this work? And the why is important because if you don't understand the why, then how do you know that you're really getting to the right outcomes, that you're really focusing on the most important things so that piece of work has the right amount of value for the organization? And these kinds of questions then allow us to say, okay, great. These are the most important things we've got to get done. We understand how they ladder up. Now, how do we organize around them? And everybody, there's a finite amount of people, there's a finite amount of capacity and talent. And so then understanding those two factors enables you to take your talent and make best use of them, put them on the most important things, take the right skill set, fill the gaps, and make choices. There will be gaps, there will be constraints. So how do you make choice? Well, if you understand where the work fits and you understand what you're trying to get to, you can make different kinds of choices in how to best use your talent.
I love that. And I really love your emphasis on why, because I think for so many people, especially like in technology, the software engineers, by the time it rolls down to them, they have
Mhm.
no idea why they're writing the code they're doing or adding the feature that they're adding. And
Yeah.
so I think, like you said, by going all the way down and then laddering back up again, you're really giving them like the sense of like how they're connected with
Mhm.
the bigger company. And I think
Yeah.
that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now final for the three questions anyway. What is a question that leaders often overlook but is
Mm.
really critical to building trust and connection with their teams? Because I know that's something you especially are amazing at.
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe it's overlooked, maybe that's the right way to term it. But I think it just maybe gets tucked to the side. You ask it once and you sort of tuck it to the side. And it is because, everyone's running, going fast, trying to get so many things done and doing. And it really goes back to this idea. And one of my sticky note mantras is to slow down and to just check in. So questions like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? How am I doing for you? What could I do differently to support you? Um, What do you need from me? What do you need from others? How could we do work differently? It's really those questions where you just slow down and check in. It's not necessarily about tell me where this widget is, tell me where this project is, what's the timeline, those are great. Those are important. Those are, lean into the action, get stuff done. But, if you believe and have the belief, and I do, that talent and people in an organization are the strategic differentiator, it can't be easily replicated, right? And that's the cultural norms, how we work and interact together. If you believe talent is what is most important, then that means you have to slow down more often to ask the questions and check in with the people, and check in with your team and check in with yourself and ask them for feedback, and give feedback.
Yeah, I love how you responded to my question, because you really pointed out, which I think is so true. This is not about asking this question once. This is about repeatedly asking the question, because, right, if you ask people like, hey, do you have any feedback for me? And it feels like the first time they're a little gun shy, they don't know you that well or whatever. And they're like, no, things are fine. And then you just assume things are fine forever. That's not reality. Things change, and you want to, by asking it multiple times, I think you signal to your teams that you're really actually open to the answer and it matters to you. Just like you said, the talent, people matter to you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you sometimes just are like, oh, they'll tell me if something's going on. They'll tell me if they need something. They'll tell me. You can't just assume that, because everybody gets caught up in just the stuff that comes at you on a daily basis. So, as a people leader, which is, direct or indirect, I say project management like functions are people leaders as well. They're accountable for teams and people in the work, and it's just indirectly. But anyone sitting in that people leader role, the most important thing is to check in with your people. How do they, and it's the softer questions, because if you can't just assume people are going to come to you with everything, they tuck to the side as well. So you got to help them think about it, and then you got to help them ask for what they need.
Yeah, and I know you're good at this. I'm just going to point it out, because we talked about in your bio how you're really great working cross-functionally. I bet this works as well with other teams too, like people who maybe don't necessarily report into you, or there's not even a dotted line, but that, you have to influence and work together with.
Yeah. I mean, that is how work gets done in life, which includes professional and non-professional situations. It is others who you get done work and through. And it's just another way, it's another way to form a relationship, so that when you do need something, you've already got that connection and that trust.
And that is so important, because I was talking with one of my clients recently, and we were talking about how when you see someone's name on the phone and immediately you're like, what do they need from me? Because they only call me when they need something from me.
Yeah. Yep. I have those people.
You do not want to be that person for your team or for your, collaborators.
Yeah. Yep. If anyone's listening and I am that person for you, please text me. I don't want to be that person for you.
I hope you're not getting a lot of texts this afternoon like, you're that person, you're that person.
I'll let you know. I might need help.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to throw in one bonus question because we have a tiny bit of time left. But
okay,
what is the best way? So maybe some people are listening to this in December, so thank you. But maybe you're getting into it in January or February and the year has started. Like, what are your recommendations for starting a new year together with your team? Are there any rituals you've used and loved?
Yeah, I think rituals makes me feel like a cult. I hope I don't have a cult.
Okay, sorry.
I don't want to be a cult leader. But I jest. But what I love to do is get the group together at the start of the year and just come together, have a shared experience, jump in the pool together, lock arms, and solve some problem, do some thinking together to just really get clear. Okay, what's important? How are we going to go about this? What work do we need to do together? Go break a little bit of bread, or, do something where it's just a coming together. Remind each other of who each other are and what we, do and how we work and what we appreciate in each other. And it's great to just reignite the relationships with your colleagues, I think, as you start the year. I was sitting in our New York office yesterday, and quite a lot of people in the office. And so, I had to find some space, and I just found this little area in a shared space. And this team came over and sat next to me because it was a big couch and tables. And I kind of got to be an outsider looking in, watching them go through what I would call, I think, is their year-end ritual. And their leader was going around. It was 5 or 6 folks sitting around the table, just sharing and asking questions around, like, what was your green light for the year? What was your red light? What do you wish, didn't happen? And how do we not do it next year? What are you most proud of that you got done this year? And then they just shared something that they were all doing over the holidays. And again, that's just another way to connect on a different level and more personal level, but, not overstep any bounds. And it was just really great to listen to them. I definitely eavesdropped, but it was great to listen to them. So I would tell you that's a different kind of, a ritual that you could do with your team now, or really at any juncture through the year. And I think they got together. It was maybe a 45-minute meeting that they were sitting there. So it's pretty quick. I think there's different ways that you can scale, these versions of rituals. But for me, what it boils down to is just getting people together. It's the idea of just getting together and having some shared conversation.
Awesome. And I actually love that you talk about, getting that shared experience at the beginning of the year, because I don't know about you, but the people I've been connecting with this week are slightly frantic because they're trying to wrap up all this work before they leave for the holidays. And so it's great that you had a team that was like sharing space and breaking bread, so to speak, together. But so many teams are just in so many different directions in wrap up in year end. So like bringing them back when they come back together, bringing them literally back together as a team from a little bit of the craziness of year end. And resetting. I love that idea.
Yeah, I'm not getting my team together until we come back in January, because I think everyone's just trying to get stuff done. And I want it to be a little bit more calm and peaceful to, have more valuable time together.
That's amazing. Okay, but now I got to ask you, what's your green light for the year?
Oh, my green light for the year? Geesh, those weren't my questions, so I didn't have answers. What's my green light for the year? I think what I loved most about this year was, I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity that I've had, and incredibly grateful for, all of the people that I work with. Like, we literally just jumped in this together and functioned as a team and kept things going. And I understand that there's a lot of trust and graciousness that was extended, and I certainly was conscious of that, and I wanted to treat it with great care. And so for me, that was just a lot of motivation. It was fun, and it was great. It was great to just be in the team in a different way.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me for my, once again, first LinkedIn Live. And already we have someone commenting that they love your sticky notes and about, you know, and they said easy to say, hard to do, which
Yep.
I know we both agree with. But yes, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, Angela. You always have so much wisdom and so much on the ground experience. And I really value, hearing your insights. And I know everyone listening to this will as well.
Oh, back at ya. I appreciate and respect you, and you've been in my life for a long, long time, and probably wouldn't be here and have all these things to share had it not been for you over the course of these many years.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Bye.